Let's jump into episode 7 through 9. Episode 7 begins where we left off. Nick runs outside to see if he can get a second glimpse of Juliette, and she's nowhere. But everyone else saw her too, so he knows he's not going insane. Meanwhile, Xavier, the man who had set them up in the last episode, gets assassinated in prison, and the Vessin who does it doesn't care that he was seen. And which leads Rosalie to decide this is about time we bring the Vessin Council in on this. So she calls them up, only to have it confirmed to her that this group called Black Claw, they now have a name, and I can now start calling them by their name again. It's all around the world, and it's this Vessin uprising going on, where these Vessins have decided that enough's enough, and they're going to come out of hiding, and they're going to take over the world. And it's explained later on that this is the same thing that Hitler tried to do with the Nazis. In this universe, the Nazis were all Vessin, but right after the Vessin Council member gets off the phone with her, he walks back into the main room, only to have one of the members of the council stand up and kill everyone besides him, and thus meaning the Vessin Council is now all dead and has been destroyed. So he's on the run now as the last member of the Vessin Council, and yeah, there's no Vessin Council anymore, so that's something. Meanwhile, Nick goes back, asks Trouble what's going on, and Trouble explains technically Juliette was not dead when she shot her. She was only, mostly dead. When they came in and they took her body, they didn't actually take her dead body. It was actually mostly dead, but not fully dead. And were able to revive her and then train her up to become a whole new person. But this is the first time Trouble's ever hearing that this Hexen Beast that they had trained was actually Juliette. Adeline also hears this news that, guess what? The person who's trying to kill her is still alive. And so she has a conversation with Nick. She's concerned that Nick, if Juliette came around again, would just leave her and their kid because he was in love with Juliette. It gets a little awkward, and in the end, they kiss. So first step was them actually having a real relationship. So that's fun. As the season goes on, and the last 2 seasons, we'll talk more about them and their relationship, but it's an interesting one. Meanwhile, the captain is also helping a mayor candidate with his campaign. He's given his support, making a couple videos for him saying that he has the police behind him. He's also having a fling with the directors of these promos and all. And meanwhile, Trouble goes back and she talks to Meisner, and Meisner agrees to allow Nick to meet the new Juliette. And so Nick, at the end of the episode, Nick goes to this fancy diner and he meets up with this woman who looks exactly like Juliette, but her name is now Eve. And she explains that she was trained up by them and that she's no longer the same person he was in love with, and that she's a completely different person, but she has the memories in the back of her head of Juliette. But she's completely just dead cold, doesn't really have a personality type person now. She is just like a robot. And we'll figure out more about her later on, but for the rest of the series, Juliette is not alive. No. Juliette is dead, guys. She is dead. This new person is Eve. She has a completely different personality. Her whole character is a different person. She just has the same face. So they could keep the same actress. Fun fact, is married to the actor who plays for Nick. So one of the reasons probably why they didn't want to just kill off her character fully. 2 of the leads can still work together while also being married. So, and the episode ends with Eve getting up and assassinating this leader of Black Claw, and then walking out, leaving Nick to take down his other 2 men. And then Meisner calls Nick and tells Nick that that was a test and that he passed it. On to the next episode. Nick starts trying to investigate Black Claw and seeing in his Grimm books if there's any more stories like that. And he finds that, of course, as we said before, there was the Nazis, and there's a couple other times in history where there have been uprisings like that and they had to tear them down. Meanwhile, this couple goes out on a lake and gets attacked by a Loch Ness Monster type creature, who's just a Vessin who has been hired out to pretend to be a creature of the Black Lagoon type monster. And for this lake, his name is the Diamond Lake Monster. But after the man tries to shoot him, he attacks and kills the guy, thus leading to now Nick and Hank has to get involved because there's been a murder. We have, the classic monster hunters going out there and trying to figure out what's going on, but this man is not actually in the lake anymore. But he eventually, that night, after getting paid by the shop owners who are making a bunch of money from a sighting of the monster, he goes back in and he kills another person, thus lead into even more, okay, this guy is clearly a killer, but he's also getting paid to do it. So Nick figures out that the shop owners are also Vessin, but not the same type of Vessin. They use Trouble to threaten the guys into revealing what's going on. Then the older of the 2 tells her that the man's going to be coming back for his money if she comes around, she can take him down and they'll split the money with her. She plays into that, but then he goes and tells the killer that his brother is planning this plan with this woman to take him down, and so thus the guy comes earlier, but trouble and all is already there, so she just comes in, takes him down. The older brother jumps in the lake to get away from Nick, who's trying to arrest him, and gets shot by the monster hunters, and so he dies too, so then they both die, and the day is saved because of that. Then episode 9 begins with Nick trying to open up the tunnel door in his new house and not having much luck with it. Trouble shows up and tells him that they need to talk because Adrian Wall, the group that she's working for, may need his help because of the growth of Black Claw in the area, and she wants to know if he's willing to join, along with Hank and Wu and the other members of the Grimm team. Meanwhile, we see a man carrying a cross into a barn where this bull-like creature just suddenly kills him, and then it cuts away and we see 2 workers find the body in the barn and call the police, and now it's causing this investigation where Nick is learning about this occult practice where these ox-like vessels will sacrifice 7 people, each of them on a cross, with each of them having a different symbol of water behind it to pray for the return of rain. So he starts investigating this and realizes that the man is using a symbol of the Big Dipper to do his killings. She gets the police to help him figure out where these murders are going to be taking place, and they find that out of them, 6 of the 7 people have already been killed and been sacrificed. And so he's now down to the last one. Something that's pretty interesting about that is that Nick talks to Adeline about it, and Adeline, being a former Hexen beast, knows exactly about all those rituals, and she tells him even more about the ritual than just in the book, and explains about some other rituals too. You also see Eve, again, that's the old Juliette, torture a man, and it is an interesting sight. She removes his mouth, his ears, his eyes, just making it so he can only breathe from his nose, and that's it, in complete silence. And then she comes in and then gives him back all those so that he can now breathe and talk to them about some secrets about Black Claw. It's a pretty disturbing moment, and it shows how different she is than the original Juliette. And again, she's not Juliette anymore, so from now on, I might mention her as Juliette a couple times, but her name is Eve. That's who she is. So she's Eve. In the end, Nick is able to track down to the graveyard being the last place of the sacrifices, and he gets there just in time to stop whoever's doing it, and it's revealed that it was the lumberman who they had been talking to earlier and not someone else. So that was a pretty good twist, and that was actually a twist I completely forgot about until I was watching it again this time. I'm like, oh, because I thought it was like the son or something of the person they thought it was, but no, it was the lumberman. But because that lumberman, Ox Vesson, gets killed and his blood is spilled, he finishes the ritual, and as Nick and Hank is getting into the car, it starts to rain, so mission complete, I guess. But overall, these episodes are pretty solid. Not my favorite episodes, but you had the introduction of Eve. Juliette was number 1 of my favorite characters. Every single time I watch the show again, I grow in a little more appreciation of Juliette. But when Juliette died, the first time I watched the series, I was like, okay, I really don't care that much. But like, now that we have this new character, Eve, it really, like, you do have that. Like, Eve is completely different with her just, like, Juliette wasn't the most deep character. She had emotions, well, with Eve, she really is, like, an emotionless zombie character where she's just like, she has no empathy, anything. She's just like, I'll do whatever it takes to get my job done, and that's all she is. And she's a fun character, so we're going to be seeing more of her throughout the series, and growing to love Eve more. But that was a pretty fun character. I do love episode 8 with the Creature of the Black Lagoon type story. I actually own that movie. It's down in Ohio. It's a part of the whole collection. I own the whole collection. It's pretty fun. I'll talk about those someday when I have them all. But anyways, I've also done a bunch of research on the Loch Ness Monster, so I love those type of stories. So that episode's pretty fun. I also, the episodes with the sacrificial bowl man, it's pretty fun. All these episodes are pretty solid. I remember when I was watching episode 7, I was kind of like, okay, what's this episode going to be about? Because I was halfway through the episode, I'm like, we haven't really had a story start. I'm like, no, the episode is literally just dealing with the whole stuff with Eve and all that and these other storylines. It doesn't have a villain of the week. And sometimes it's going to be good. We'll see a lot in that season 6 where it's really never monsters of the week at all. It's kind of just one storyline. We'll talk about in season 6 about that, but overall these episodes are pretty solid. Stay tuned for when I talk about episodes 10 through 12. This has been the Movie Night Reviewer, Peter Wary, signing off.